What's going on, guys? In today's video, we're going to be doing our updated running back rankings for this fantasy season. Last time, and I'll be the first to admit this, they were pretty bad. We made some pretty bad mistakes. I mean, Dalvin Cook in the top 10 was awful. Bijan outside the top 10 was a big mistake. But I mean, these are the last couple weeks before fantasy drafts are really kicking in. I have one tonight and next week, so I'm starting to get these. These are the last couple videos that's going to come out. These are our updated running back rankings. Let's get into it, guys.
Joe Mixon, previous rank 7, current rank 10.
Mixon is a solid running back with a great receiving upside as well. Last year, he rushed for just shy of the 1,000-yard mark with only 814 rushing yards, which is so-so, pretty average. However, he rushed for over 1,000 yards in 3 of his 6 NFL seasons, and I expect him to rush for around 1,000 this year, maybe 900, maybe 1,100, something around there. But take away his rushing stats, and his 60 receptions for 441 yards is what the big thing is. That's important, and that's what brings fantasy points. Overall, he had 9 total touchdowns, which is a pretty good number. But I'm pretty shocked that a player like Joe Mixon, who's performed as he's performed over his career, is being ranked 13th in this book. And a lot of rankings in this book says Mike Clay on there. Mike Clay, key part in this book, aren't the rankings that I would use. And of course, maybe he's the expert. But I just think they're a little off. And I think that when you look at a player like Joe Mixon, for example, he's a solid RB2 and possibly an RB1. I mean, last year he had that one game with like 45 fantasy points. I mean, he's a top 10 guy. He's been consistent throughout his whole career. And I just think that 10 is a perfect place for him.
Tony Pollard, previous rank 10, current rank 9.
Pollard deserves the boost up from our last rankings, but I think he may have a great year, far better than what some of the experts are saying he can have. Because, listen, last year he was able to rush for over 1,000 yards and 9 touchdowns, and even caught 39 passes for 372 yards and an additional 3 touchdowns in the receiving game. He did this all the while Ezekiel Elliott played 15 games and scored 12 touchdowns. Imagine what he could do with no competition in that backfield. I mean, Pollard scored 249 fantasy points last year, and I think he will get at least 270, maybe even to the close of the 300 range, while some of the experts are saying he'll score less than that 249. It doesn't make sense to me. The key for me this year is the no competition in that backfield. And the reason I don't want to draft Ramondre Stevenson this year is because Zeke, the big boy, is taking up all the touchdowns around the goal line. All those carries inside the 5, inside the 10, they're given to Zeke, and he's scoring touchdowns. Without that, Pollard being the main guy and the main receiving back, I mean, pretty much the only, besides Deuce Vaughn, he's going to get a ton more touchdowns than last year. I think he'll be a major success this year. And you don't want to sleep on him because he'll be a great pick in the second round this year and the back end of the first round if you're in a 12-plus team league.
Ladies and gentlemen, up next we have the rookie and the generational talent, Bijan Robinson. Previous rank, not available. Current rank, 8.
ESPN ranks Bijan at the RB3, which I think is way too high, just because he hasn't played a snap yet. I'm not arguing that he is immense talent and is a great running back. I'm actually going to vouch for him in this case. I think he's a generational talent, but me personally, I'm just conservative towards grabbing rookie running backs. I mean, he had 8.2 yards per carry as a freshman, which is insane. And to follow that up with a sophomore campaign boasting 1,127 rushing yards and 11 touchdowns in only 10 games, just looking at everything that he's done as a collegiate level, I cannot fully fault anyone for wanting to draft him at that spot. But top 5 is just way too high, and I won't be taking that risk, me personally. However, as a junior, he played 12 games, rushed for, get ready for this, 1,580 yards with a 6.1 yards per carry and 18 touchdowns as a junior in college. I mean, listen, right now I won't take him this early in the draft, but next year he might be the #1 pick. He might be a generational talent at running back. We'll just have to see what happens this year. I'd take him mid to end of the first round in your drafts.
Next up, the beast from Cleveland, Nick Chubb. Previous rank 6, current rank 7.
Bet you didn't see me there. Just like this year, a lot of fantasy managers aren't noticing Nick Chubb when they need to be. We have a number 7 here, and that's because he's one of the most dominant runners in the league overall. He's very gritty and uses his big size and build to his advantage. Last year, he rushed for 1,525 yards, which is one of 3 players to break the 1,500-yard mark. And with the absence of Kareem Hunt, as he just left in free agency, it will be he'll get a lot more carries, means a lot more yards, means a lot more points for your team. And also, the Browns are already a run-first offense. Even with the addition of Deshaun Watson for a full year, I still think they'll be a run-first team. And last year, he even caught 27 passes for 239 yards, which is a little on the downside for receiving back, which is why a lot of people are sleeping on him this year. But the top tier of running backs for receiving running backs in fantasy only will catch around 40 passes for 300 and something yards, you know what I mean? So it's not that big of a decrease when you add up his rushing upside. So Nick Chubb is going to be a great pick this year to the end of the first round to like the mid-second round for you this year.
Here we have the King Henry, previous rank 5, current rank 6.
Henry is the top running back because he's one of only 3 running backs to rush for over 1,500 yards last year. Him, Chubb, and Josh Jacobs, who we'll talk about later. He added 13 touchdowns overall and is a solid 398 receiving yards on 33 catches, which is pretty good. He also led the league in carries, which is big because this is one of the most important things about fantasy football. It's called volume, meaning a player that gets a ton of touches, whether that be catches, carries, if a quarterback a lot of throws, and receiver getting a lot of targets. Those things that are very important because that's what's going to get you extra points. I mean, it goes without saying, really, that volume is the most important thing. And Henry gets a lot of that, which will make him very successful for you this year.
Saquon Barkley, previous rank 4, current rank 5.
Number 5 is Saquon Barkley, and he's a do-it-all back and is a perfect position with the Giants this year. He had 1,112 yards plus 10 touchdowns last year, which is a great stat line for him, and 57 catches, not to mention perfect for PPR leagues, and 338 yards, totaling 284 fantasy points. He finished top 5 in carries, targets, touches, and scrimmage yards, and fantasy points at the position. You can't go wrong with taking him at all this year.
Jonathan Taylor, previous rank 8, current rank 4.
Listen, guys, I'll be the first to admit that putting JT at 8 was awful. I mean, I didn't do enough research on it first, but the reason now we put him at 4 this time is because we know what he can do. Last year, he was very injury-riddled, and so that didn't really show what he could do when he had an off-season. But let's rewind back to 2021, where Taylor had 2,171 scrimmage yards and 20 touchdowns. Okay, we know he has talent and tons of potential, but the big question now is, will he play, obviously? You see, he demanded a trade for Indianapolis Colts, and the owner, Jim Irsay, was like, heck no, you're staying Indy. You're one of the best running backs in the league. However, on Sunday, he did get back with a team that suggests he will play this season, but he's still medically uncleared to play because of his off-season surgery. Assuming he won't hold out, which I doubt he will at this point, he's a great pick this year as I expect him to bounce back.
Josh Jacobs, previous rank 3, current rank 3.
I don't see many people ranking Josh Jacobs this high, and I've talked about this book multiple times already, but he's ranked number 7 in there, and just how can this be? I mean, he led the league in rushing yards last year with 1,653, and not to mention 12 additional touchdowns, and don't forget how much of a force he is in the receiving game. 53 catches and 400 yards on the dot, en route to 328 total fantasy points. What's not to like about this guy? He's ranked top 15 in running back receiving yards for the past 2 seasons and has never finished below 15th in rushing yards or fantasy points per game. Plus, he led the league in touches with 393 last season, which I said earlier about Derrick Henry. Volume is the name of the game. I mean, he's really perfect. I mean, look at all the stats I've just stated. How can you not like him in the mid-round 1 this year to round 2-ish range. I mean, he's falling way too far than he should be. Take Jacobs this year. If he plays, though, he might hold out. I doubt it, though. He should be ready for week 1.
C-Mac, Christian McCaffrey. Previous rank 1, current rank 2, dethroned.
So the big change is McCaffrey from 1 to 2, Eckler flip-flopping each other. And even though McCaffrey is the most gifted running back in the league, he can't pass up Eckler. 1,139 rushing yards and 13 total touchdowns, plus a whopping 85 catches, second in the league, and 741 receiving yards, second in the league for running backs, were his stat lines this year, and second in the league behind Eckler only, but we'll get more to Eckler at the number 1 spot. The major concerns for McCaffrey are his carry shares and injury. I mean, he's had a very injury-riddled past, but when he does play, he is a stud, and I expect him to play most of the season this year, maybe 14, 15 games. So the big thing about the carry shares I was talking about is because when Elijah Mitchell played last year, he averaged 8 less fantasy points per game, and Elijah Mitchell wasn't healthy that year, and McCaffrey didn't play the full year for the Niners. So if he does this year, and assuming Elijah Mitchell is healthy, it will take away a lot of his points, but he's still, if he falls past the 4th pick in this year, he's a perfect pick for you, and you want McCaffrey regardless.
The touchdown machine, Austin Eckler. Previous rank 2, current rank 1.
Only 915 rushing yards for Eckler, but 13 rushing touchdowns was the big thing, and that's what makes him so valuable is his touchdowns. He was number 1 in the league last year in catches with 107 and receiving yards with 722, plus 5 receiving touchdowns. Since 2021, his 38 touchdowns is 12 more than any other player. And those 107 receptions from earlier are 5th most in the entire league. Not just running backs, receivers too. 5th most in the league as a running back. I mean, guys, even if he take a step back this year, he's still going to be the top running back. He should be taken at the 2 or 3 spot this year. Eckler is the best back in the league. Take him, guys. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed that video. And if you did, please leave a like and subscribe. And just watch all of our other videos and recommend them to a friend. Thank you guys so much.